Hello gobs and welcome back to another video. Today, you know what time it is, I'm bringing more RPG horror stories. These are fun to do and they always do well on the channel. These stories may or may not be fake. If they are fake, they make good hypothetical situations to go in and see how you would react or how I would do things differently. All in all, it's just really good advice to give. I'm not saying these are fake, I'm not saying they're real, but I'll leave that up to personal interpretation. I'm going to leave it as a story for me to read and you to listen to. So, let's get the general blah 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 out of the way. If you have your own horror story, you can go ahead and email me using that email in the description below. It can be TTRPG, it could be even an RPG horror story, you know, let's get a bit crazy with it, I guess, or something, I don't know. Anyways, I'm going to read stories and you're going to sit there and listen, like a good gob. I think my mic sensitivity's too high. Is that better? I don't know, we're just gonna roll with it, it's peaking, whatever. Our first story comes from Bill the Hiker 187. Adversarial DM is not fun for the players. TLDR, adversarial DM who actively played against certain characters if you weren't playing D&D the right way, really sucked the fun out and I dropped. I understand the campaign folded shortly after. The long version. Princess of the Apocalypse campaign. I joined a year or so in, a female Goliath fighter. Its relative to players was mid-20s and the only female, the rest males. A human cleric, a warlock/bard, an elf arcane archer, and me, a tiefling rogue. I joined a year or so into the campaign. DM was male, mid-40s. DM made it pretty clear he didn't think a woman should be playing a fighter, and was constantly finding ways to target the Goliath. Her breaking point was after he RP'd her Walk of Shame the morning after a tavern encounter. Thankfully, he didn't RP the encounter itself, just the morning after. But none of this with the player's consent. Almost left at that point, but let myself get talked into saying so the campaign wouldn't fold. Seriously? Already? Come on, you gotta leave after something like that. At least talk to the DM about it. That's not cool, letting that happen to someone else's character and just sticking around. Yeah, you should, I mean, not everyone's confrontational, but you should at least speak up and, I don't know, help out your fellow players if you don't think something's happening right. Don't sit there, because again, the DM is not the grand arbiter. They might be the grand arbiter about some of the rules, but for the most part, they're not the grand arbiter about how people should act and treat each other. So, again guys, if something's happening to your player or someone else's player that you find a bit odd and that player is obviously uncomfortable, speak up about it, or say something. Message them maybe, I mean, do something a bit more than just sit there and watch it happen. You might be a player, but it is your time and it is your space to do stuff to enjoy the game you want to enjoy. Moving on. After the Goliath left, it was my turn. Liam decided to really lean into the whole everyone is racist against tieflings trope, to the point where I confronted him out of game and told him if he wanted me murder-hobering every NPC that crossed our paths, say the word. In which case, I'm out, because that doesn't interest me. He insisted he's not racist because he has friends of colors. I wish I was making that up. And again, I let myself get talked into saying. To be fair, the racism stopped, but the fun had gone out of the character, so I killed him off and replaced him. I'm not gonna say anything. We're just gonna keep reading, okay? We got down into the underground temple complex. Two things quickly became apparent. The DM had a soft spot for the warlock, who somehow hit all his attacks and made all his saves, and he treated treasure like it was coming out of his own pocket. My final straw was, after clearing out 2 or 4 of the temples, we headed back to the surface to recover. There was a small adder gathered for no discernible purpose who agreed to heal and resupply us, for a 300% markup on standard gear prices because inflation. It was so petty and so ridiculous, I RP'd my character telling the others he had not seen one single reason in the last however long it had been to care about the people of the Darrison Valley, and he was done bleeding for him. He then rode off. I eventually heard the campaign just faded after that. And that's where our story comes to its conclusion. No big blow up or anything, especially over the racism and I guess perceived sexism, but At least you spoke up about it on the second part, and look, it stopped. So, obviously, speaking up about stuff that makes you uncomfortable or you dislike or makes other people uncomfortable helps change the campaign for the better. So, I mean, like in the first one, maybe next time, if you ever see something like this happen, speak up for the player if they're not speaking up for themselves. Again, there's always a bit of nuance. You never quite know how a person is feeling, and sometimes people can be hard to read. So if you're ever unsure, I'm not saying let it slide, but you should at least message them and see how well they're feeling, depending on how well you know the person. He's right, people, DMs who actively work against the party or have this type of DM versus player mindset. I mean, he was getting upset over giving them out treasure. Like, dude, you're running the game. You don't have to give them out that treasure if you really don't want to. Stop acting like it's a big deal. But giving a soft spot for Warlock, letting them hit all their saves and attacks. Come on, be a DM for the players. Come on, guys. It's not that hard. And not you guys. I'm talking about these terrible DMs. But that's all I have to say about this story. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the next story. Our next story comes from Cold Color 900. DM disrespects everyone's time. I joined one of those D&D Discord servers where you make a character to get approved to do quests. DMs create one-shot quests that are all set in the same world and users can apply to join them. I'd rather join a full-on campaign, but I couldn't find any that fit my schedule, so this would have to do. Isn't this called a Marsh server or something like that? I forget what these type of servers are called, but I think I remember Marsh being in the name. Whatever, let's see what happens. They generally don't turn out too well, because campaigns are a bit more, I don't know, fun to run, but it works for some people, so more power to them. Let's continue. Someone posted a quest where you had to escort merchants to deliver a mysterious package, and I thought this was pretty interesting, so I joined. This was the very first quest I joined. The quest was PvP instead of voice chat. The quest was scheduled to go on for 4 hours. It started with the usual tavern setting. We introduced our characters and all that, but it nearly took like 2 hours to actually leave the tavern because the DM was eager to teach the new guys how to play D&D, and went on a bunch of tangents to show how to play. That's not where the issue lied, however. On the 2-hour mark, the DM announced a 5+ minute break after we leave the tavern. Alright, cool, I thought. This won't take too long. I was patiently waiting for the DM to announce the end of the break, but it never came. About 15 or so minutes after the break started, someone asked in our party when we started playing again. The DM said that they are making food, so it would be another half hour to finish and eat. At that point, I figured a break was going to take long, so I decided to make food for myself as well. I brought my phone up to the kitchen just in case the break ended before I finished, but I managed to cook a whole pot of Alfredo and eat it before the end of the break. I casually mentioned in the chat as a playful jab at the DM for taking so long, until he said they were making stews and rice. I don't cook much, but that sounds like it takes ages to make for what's supposed to be a short break. Remember, their words were 5+ minutes. Which is technically true, but incredibly misleading. At this point, we were starting to get antsy to play again. This was my first quest, so I was trying to be patient and respectful. One player, who I'll call Gary, says we should start playing again, saying it's okay to go slow as long as we at least start. DM says, I can't, I'm with my mom and she's ill. Keep in mind, they did not bring up their mother at all until now. Like, I'm sorry about your mom, but bringing up now makes it feel like you're guilt-tripping us. So, everyone pretty much said, alright, I understand, I guess, and continued waiting. It gets to the point where another player, Greg, can't stay, so the DM offers to repost the quest the next day at the same time, and gives priority to everyone who was in the quest. So, the next day comes when it's time to do the quest. We find out that the DM is already doing another one with another party and won't be done for another 4 hours. After that, I just told him not to ping me. I didn't want to play this quest anymore, and everyone after did the same or just couldn't make it. Later, an argument broke out between the GM, Gary, and Greg. I don't remember the specifics of the argument since DM deleted the quest post, likely to cover his behind, but it boiled down to Gary and Greg telling them off for disrespecting their time like that, and DM pretty much admitting that they did not care. As I was writing this post, I went back to search for messages on Discord. Come to find out that the DM is no longer in the server. My guess is they were kicked or banned by an admin for screwing up like this and trying to brush it under the rug. TLDR. DM disrespected our time by dragging a 5-minute break into a rescheduling of the whole campaign and gave zero heads up for why they were going to take so long until someone asked why. Well, this one's plain and simple. If you're going to be the DM for a campaign, I mean, I get it, some stuff pops up sometime, but if you're the DM and you have these players who agree... Train moment. But whatever, I'm going to keep talking. But if you are a DM and you have these players who agree to give their time to you to play in your campaign, then you should also respect that they're showing up. Now guys, I get it, the players don't have to do as much preparing as the DM goes. But even if it's online, they are still giving up some of their free time to be there. And when you take 30 plus minutes to cook something simple as food, dang. Come on, man. But when you take 30 minutes and don't even give anybody... Are you done? Douchebag? Douche train? Whatever. Oh my god. We get it! You're crossing the road! You don't have to blare your horn anymore. Oh my gosh. Never live next to a train track, guys, okay? It makes the whole cave rumble. What was I saying? I've completely lost my train of thought. Basically, respect people's times because everyone puts time in there to be there. So if you're going to take a 30+ minute break, you might as well tell everyone, hey, I'm going to be gone for X amount of minutes. If you're still around afterwards or if you can't make up the time, again, he did somewhat say that, but they should have said it earlier so that the people who were committed there would know, okay, I'm going to go do something else. So, guys, just respect people's times because everyone puts in the time to be there, and they might ask off for work or they might have X amount of time, whatever. Just be mindful of people's times. Moving on to the next story. Our next story comes from Round Puzzlehead 626. Essay warning: DM controls group, deflects criticisms, strips female characters nude, and makes his GF the main character. What a wild title to start off with. Hey there, figured I'd try my hand at submitting my own experience with D&D, as it is my only D&D story so far. I should warn you, this took place over the course of just over a year, so there's a lot of ground to cover, so I have cut out as much fluff as possible and broken the remainder up into following chapters. Also, trigger warning for heavy gore and sexual assault. Chapter 1, starting the group, character profiles. Now, for context, nobody in our group has ever played D&D before. Not the players, not our DMs, so none of us had any idea what we were doing. We didn't mind though, as it was a nice excuse for us to all meet up and hang out together on a weekly basis. So DM met up with each of us individually and made our character sheets. Our stats were determined by roll a d20 and whatever number you get, that's your stats. Now, I don't know what the correct way for rolling stats would be, as stated earlier. This will end up being the only D&D experience most of us had and ever within this game. We had to re-roll our stats multiple times, each in different ways, though we'll get to that later. So this could have been completely off, but it's what we went with to start. There also wasn't any briefing about the story, characters, or tone, etc. Which again, didn't faze us all that much, but it's definitely worth noting for reference as it comes into play in a major way a lot later. Yep, if you guys know me, I'm not a fan of rolling for stats, and this is awful. D20, yep, you're either gonna get extremely high or extremely low. Mainly, I think your average is 9 to 11, which is complete doo-doo and is nothing. I mean, rolling 4d6 is technically much better, but it's not good at all. There's nothing wrong with running standard array and having everyone on an equal playing field, guys. I don't like rolling for stats unless it's built into the system, kind of like Traveler is. That's about the only system I can think of. I very much prefer being able to put your numbers, your stats, wherever you want them to go. Moving on. Now the characters. Ronan, a human fighter whose entire family had been kidnapped, presumed dead, now searches the realm for clues on their whereabouts and vows revenge on whoever took them from him. Lady Calliope at a house of grey. A princess beloved by the people but tired of living her life shackled to his mother's demand, seeking a new life adventure, not one of politics and boardrooms. The Wanderer. A ranger whose entire town was wiped out by the petty squabble between two gods when he was only an infant, killing everyone he knows and care about. He will now not rest until every single god is wiped out. Jasper, a small woodland imp who kind of just stumbled into her adventure. Her player had a lot of university commitments, so if she disappears from the story for long stretches at a time, it's not that I've forgotten about her, she's just not there. Most sessions would end with the DM joking, "Oh, also, Jasper was there too." It will also be worth noting that Ronan and Jasper are dating RL, as are Lady Calliope and the Wanderer. The only person without a partner in the game is the DM, and this will also come up later. It's also worth noting that the DM had on multiple occasions in the past shown romantic interest in Lady Calliope, and tried to convince Ronan and Jasper to open up to a polycule with him, none of which ever amounted to anything. So if the DM ever seems like he's a bit creep regarding his female players, that'd be why. Do I even need a comment? Guys, don't break up other people's relationships. You can, there's that term, there's more gobs in the caves, okay? There's always more gobs in the caves. It's a very popular term, I assure you. Okay, whatever. I don't need to tell you not to be a creep and not to break up relationships. We're just gonna move on, but man, this DM's already starting off to a bad foot. Or he wasn't trying to break him up, but trying to open up to polycule. But as I say, to each their own. But come on, if someone doesn't want to do that, then don't pester them, okay? Just let people live their lives, man. Come on. So, with our characters created, we waited a month or so for the DM to let us know when he was ready, and we meet up to start our campaign. Chapter 2, Session 1, The Wanderer's Noble Inn. Our first sessions went well. It was the first time we had met each other, as DM knew both couples, but we had never introduced us. We hit it off well and the session began. I'll try and keep the sessions brief as possible so context for later events can be had, and I'll expand on the major events when they happen. The group meets in the local tavern and are given a quest by a mysterious stranger. Upon accepting the quest, 2 level 10 enemies, I should stress we are only level 1, barge into the tavern, kill the Wanderer, and leave. This is the first 10 minutes of the game, so the Wanderer is a bit upset by this, but the group heals him to health again and moves on. To give you an idea of how our party played, on our road trip we came across a group of guards transporting a carriage full of gold. So the party made conversation with the guard captain and rolled a nat 20 persuasion for him to execute his own men, telling them this is for the crappy meatloaf your wife made and other random excuses we could come up with. Our entire group was super chill and didn't really care for, so if any point during this post you feel like saying, actually, just bear in mind that none of us cared. Not yet, anyways. We get into the new town, stock up on supplies, and head into the local mine to ward off the ghost army that dwells inside, where the lead guard turns on us for acts of violence. To punish the guard for being a party pooper, the party cut off his limbs, ripped off his had Jasper fly inside him through his gaping dick hole, up to his heart and rip it out from his screaming scrote. That's such a random thing to add. What is wrong with you guys? Oh my god, well, you did warn about extreme gore, jeez. Oh my god, whatever, move on. We celebrated, threw the Ghost King an impromptu birthday, and collected our loot. It's at this point that Ronan collects a mysterious ring that forges itself to his finger and speaks to his mind, while also being able to shield his body in a magical substance, which would allow him to bear his new powerful abilities. Venom. It was Venom. Chapter 3, Killer Queen / New World Order. The party ventures to Lady Calliope's home city to resolve some issues with her mother, the Queen. To everybody at the table's surprise, however, Calliope took this opportunity to surprise attack and behead her mother, causing us to defend ourselves against the royal guard. In the wake of the bloody mess we leave behind, the party decided to cover up the story to the public and hold a fighting tournament to decide who the next royal leader should be, as Calliope did not have interest in the throne. The winner ended up being the Wanderer, who accepted the mantle of the king and vowed to protect and defend these people with all his power. You mean the same Wanderer who helped delimb a guard and made him into a nugget, wants to watched someone's own daughter behead their mom. Oh my. Are you guys the horror story? Are you sure it's the DM? I'm beginning to think you guys are the horror story. Whatever, people play however they want in their own time or whatever. At least all friends are just having fun with it. They did say they didn't care or no one in the party cared, so whatever. It's just crazy to read from an outside perspective. And let's move on. In between sessions, the DM sent a very long and angry message to our group chat expressing how disappointed that he was in us. Not for our hijinks or the gratuitous violence, but for the lack of roleplay, and then sent us a link to the Critical Role YouTube playlist and said, no persuasion rolls or anything like that would be allowed going forward unless you roleplay them and physically convince me that you are your character. This is never referenced again. I know I'm pausing a lot, but I hate this type of like enforced roleplay. Like, people in real life aren't charismatic enough, or some people are and some people aren't. I know I'm not charismatic enough to try to convince you through roleplay that my character's in the right, because I'm not my character. My character is a completely different fictional being who's really charismatic, but not me. You should instead offer a +1 to the roll if they roleplay it out or drop the DC. Something like that. Incentivize roleplay, but don't change the initial DC at all. Just a little tidbit. Okay, we're moving on. The next session began immediately with a red dragon destroying the Wanderer's new kingdom, almost TPKing the group until the DM introduced a new character. His DMPC, a suave, swashbuckling, handsome bard swordsman who saves the party and kills the dragon, before turning to the rest of the party saying, "Guess I got to you guys just in the nick of time," and then magically conjured up an entire feast for the city, rebuilt their homes in seconds. It was cheered on as the city's new hero. I think at this point, something inside the Wanderer snapped, as it had been about 4 months of the DM beating down on every single thing the Wanderer did, which I have to skip over here, as if I listed everything our party went through, we'd be here forever. But this must have been the final straw, as he took the DMPC into a darkened alleyway and stabbed him to death. After this venting of frustration, however, the Wanderer just returned to playing normally. Oh my god. 4 months of this already? I mean, if you're having fun, then you're having fun. That's it. I can't hold you to if you or guys are having fun while doing this. I mean, obviously the Wanderer isn't having too much fun because they vented out the frustration, but for the most part, I can't say that you guys are in the wrong because it might be weird to me, but if you guys are having fun, then you guys are having fun. Moving on. Chapter 4, Adventures of the Caribbean. Our party got word from Messenger that we needed to assist a group of Fae overseas, so we set sail. The Wanderer was given an in-depth sheet of the boat's features and weapons. We will all get a loading up sea shanty playlist to set the mood. This did not last, as the moment we set sail, the DM set a kraken upon us. The Wanderer tried to use boat's weapons against the kraken, but the DM smugly responded, "It is immune to all types of damage." There was an exchange between the two regarding, "Why did you bother giving me the sheet if I literally can't use anything on it?" But the DM just laughed and carried on. The boat is destroyed, but we all escape and met with the Fey Queen. The Wanderer had some flirtatious banner, resolved the locals' issues, and began heading back to our party cities with no real incidents here. On our downtime, the Wanderer and Ronan start having heart-to-heart talks, as Wanderer gives Ronan and Venom some counseling sessions to try and ease the tension between the two entities. DM's not happy at all, gets peed off saying this is boring and a waste of time, and refuses the two players from continuing. So he wants them to roleplay and then gets mad when they start to roleplay. On the next session, the DM brings in his ex-girlfriend to play with us. We all actually get on well with her and agree to let her stay around. She was a dwarf fighter and even said her character had a pet bear who would eventually be morphed into Detective Bear named Gary Butler. For those wondering, the name came from Ger the Bear to Gary the Bear to Gary Butler. I have absolutely no recollection on how he ended up being a detective. She would not stick around though, as she came to maybe 2 sessions and then never came back. Gary, however, became a potentially the most beloved honorary member of our party. He got roleplayed as if he were a genuine character, and eventually the Wanderer ended up buying a custom mini of him to add to our sessions. Chapter 5, Civil War. If you notice a pattern here, you may have guessed that as soon as Gary Butler mini arrived in the mail, next session commenced with the DM introducing a BBG, kidnapping the bear, and killing him. The BBG also took the opportunity to make snide sexual remarks towards Calliope and taunted Ronan, saying he was a cuck. his daughter was bred from another man, and that not only was his wife still alive, but he was performing regular sexual acts to the BBG. This was a really weird and awkward moment that nobody except the DM seemed to enjoy at all. Do I need to say it? Don't spring sudden sexual stuff or explicit content onto your party out of nowhere. If you're gonna do something like that, at least get the parties okay. But even then, this is... Oh my... How did you guys put up with this for so long? I get your friends, but just because you're friends doesn't mean they make great people to play D&D with. Again, it was in the moment, I guess, or something. I don't know. We're moving on. The party begins to track down the BBG, but in the search, the Wanderer is mind controlled and now forced to fight the rest of the party. I don't know if this was supposed to be yet another slight at the player, but the Wanderer actually got quite into it and seemed excited to fully test out his tank build. As if it were fate, the DM noticed this, and after the very first hit landed on the Wanderer, he proclaimed, "That's it, the spell's broken, initiative over." While we rested in the town on our way back to the city, we discovered what appears to be the appearance of a werewolf. After a bit of investigation, the werewolf turns out to really be Lady Calliope. Please do not ask, I truly do not remember how she suddenly became a werewolf, but I do know there was an explanation given. The DM took the opportunity to describe the transformation, and Calliope turned back to human form and spent about 10 minutes describing her bare naked form in very intimate detail, leaving no crack nor crevice to imagination. At this point, Wanderer took the DM and spoke to him outside RL. We could see him talking a lot but couldn't hear what he said to the DM. Whatever it was must have worked though, because when we resumed, Calliope was immediately given clothing and the plot was dropped entirely. Good on him, or yeah, whatever. Good on the person for like immediately. I mean, 10 minutes is a bit long to let him ramble on and describe it, but at least something happened in the middle of the session. I used to always say, snip it in the bud, and this was quite literally snipped in the bud. Or not literally. They did it before it started to get worse, but something tells me this won't be the DM's last way of doing this, because the title says characters and not just caricature, I think. I hope this is it, but we're going to find out. Chapter 6, Elf Poets Society. Christmas. There was an adventure here, but I do not remember it. Okay, we're just going to move on. This story's really long. I don't want to sit here and read absolutely everything. Is that another flipping train? This video is going crazy. There's dogs barking, cats running, trains blaring the horns. Oh my gosh, I can't escape it. This cave is a nightmare. I'll try to speed read it. Christmas. There was an adventure here, but I do not remember it. I only remember we met Santa. He gave us all gifts, proclaimed himself to be the new god, and when the Wanderer brought up his entire backstory about God and stuff, Santa just teleported us all away immediately, as if the DM only just had in the moment been reminded of this. The party threw a Christmas banquet both in-game and RL to celebrate the new year and our time together. It was nice. Towards the end of the session, the Wanderer announced that he would be leaving the party to be with the Fey Queen fallen in love with, and raise an army to fight against the BBG. I'm convinced this was just his way to trying to politely get out of the game though, and he did not return for quite a few sessions, though Calliope still continued to come and play in his absence. Over the next few sessions, DM brought in his new GF to our sessions. We called her Yoko Ono. It began as a one-off as her playing a level 30 Wizard Fighter multiclass. The rest of us were only level 13 at the time, as she basically took over our party, tanked enemies, and led the charge. After a lot of pushback, the DM eventually agreed to scale her down to the same level as the rest of us for the rest of the campaign. Her character was incredibly childless and would routinely interrupt our players, call the players idiots. Whenever she wasn't actively playing, she would spend the whole time scrolling social media on her iPad and mutter snide comments about us under her breath. She also began actually departing and would constantly pull out the rulebook to correct us on everything. Okay, you're going to have a level 30 character and then correct everybody. I don't know if this is 5e, but if you're coming in here with a level 30 character and talking about the rulebook when you're way above max level, you don't got a place to be. Get out of here! There was a lot of public displays of affection, with them sitting several sessions, making out over the table, leaving the rest of us awkwardly waiting to continue. In one incident where Yoko began massaging DM's crotch under the table, led to Ronan slamming the telling and yelling, I'm here to play the effing game, not watch you two the whole time. None of us liked having her there, and each of us individually wound up taking a session or two off independently due to the situation. But none of us wanted to be the one to ask our DM to stop bringing Yoko to the group either, and we didn't want to give up the weekly routine we built up together, which of course eventually led to Chapter 7. Look what you made us do. About 4 or 5 sessions with Yoko, we got Calliope to convince the Wanderer to return to the game. I know this definitely was the best way to get this sorted, but it's what we did. When he did return, he decided to play a new character, an elf author who was brought in as a bit of a dry spell creatively and wanted to follow the party to write about their adventures. DM refused him to be anything except level 1, but Wanderer let this slide despite the rest of the group being much higher. During his introductions, however, Yoko would routinely interrupt with, "I'm bored, my character starts collecting rocks," or "I throw rocks at X character." We set out on adventure, and on session 3, our party came to fight a Balrog. The Balrog went out of his way to try and kill the Wanderer, but we protected him and eventually killed the beast. In the fight, though, the Balrog had caved in the chamber we were in, so we had to figure out a way to escape. We tried several solutions, but the DM turned down each one of them. After a while, we devised a plan to include all of us in our typical grotesque fashion. The Wanderer carried many vials of ink on him, and as well as a small lighter. The rest of us had a bunch of explosive stockpilers from a previous quest. Ronan would use his venom strength to punch a hole in the Balrog's a-hole. Then Jasper, who was here for this session, would fly inside the beast up to its stomach and plant explosives. Then the Wanderer would use the ink to create a trail from the Calliope to ignite with burning hands, and then the Ronin would shield all of us in a venom bubble. It was perfect, and we were ecstatic to do it. Are you sure you were ecstatic? Again, but it's the way their group played. If you're wondering why Yoko isn't included in this plan, that would be because as we were forming the plan, she interrupted with, "This is stupid. I leave these idiots behind and go collect loot." When she was done looting literally every item in the cavern, Yoko returned and right as we were about to enact our plan, said, "Let's throw one of my sons at it and it explodes when we get out." To which the DM allowed to happen. We were all very peeved, and that was the last straw for everybody. Okay, we're getting to the finale, but oh my gosh, I hate this Yoko character so much. They just want everything to go to why even show up to play? I get it, you're in a relationship, you want them to be there, but if they're just gonna sit there and make the game horrible for everyone else, you guys don't have to put up with this, you know? Your time is, like I said before, you're taking time out of your week to be there. So the DM should also respect it as well. I don't know I think they said college or university or something, but that's definitely a busy schedule, and for you to take time out of your week to be there just for them to sit there and take up most of the session making out, you have the right to say something about it. I get it, you don't want to say something. But if you're truly uncomfortable, then you should just speak up about it. Speak up about it, say, "Hey, this isn't cool, we're not having fun, this is awkward, blah blah blah," and try to work something out. If not, then you don't have to play D&D together, or you could always find another group. Let's move on to the final chapter, I think. Yeah. Chapter 8, Dynasty. It all fell down. After this session, Wanderer messaged DM privately and suggested we should all meet up without Yoko to discuss things. We met at a bar the following day. We got there early and Wanderer collected talking points from everybody so that all of our issues would be addressed. When the DM arrived, we laid out our issues, to which he deflected all of them. It's not that she was scrolling on the iPad, it's just ADHD. She was making snide comments about us under her breath and calling us idiots. She actually has dissociative identity disorder, and it was really her other person talking, not her. She wasn't actually us, it was OCD. The DM wasn't picking on people, it was just a more realistic game. He didn't describe the female's character bodies intentionally for perv reasons, he was just a very comprehensive author. Every single issue we had was deflected. We were there for about 2 hours before we decided to leave things and reconvene the following week. Little did we know, we had already played our final D&D session, and this was just the epilogue. Bar session number 2 went about the same as the first. DM deflected all of our points again, said it was unfair that we would ask him to not bring his GF since we all had our partners there. We try to explain that we play respectfully, leave the PSA outside of our games, which was responded to with, "That's just our love language. Just because none of you are sexual in nature doesn't mean I'm not allowed to be." And at one point snapped and yelled at Calliope, "You always side with Wanderer. You never side with me." Followed by the thrift, "Yeah, because you're being a cunt." DM slamming his fist on the table and stopping outside for a smoke. "Yeah, give it to him. Let him have it. Screw that guy." Seriously, guys, even if you're intensely sexual in nature, you should have respect for other people and be able to turn it off. Or whatever. Not, you know what I mean. You don't have to PSA just because you guys are that romantically interested. We're gonna finish it. We're finishing this off. There was also a very intensive talk about how Yoko was disgusted by his brutally sexual assaulting the Belloc's corpse and how it triggered her PTSD. How coming to our session was already inducing anxiety attacks, and this was too far for her. Wanderer asked why DM would even invite her knowing how our playstyle was, and asked her if he ever bothered to even brief her on this before she joined, which was shot down by a, "I shouldn't have to brief her. Y'all should have been more accommodating to her past." A past that I may point out none of us even knew until now anyways. DM said we needed to say everything to Yoko in person rather than speaking to him, which we stated we didn't want to hurt her feelings but reluctantly agreed to. Our session number 3 was much shorter than the others. We once again got there early and Wanderer spent the entire time silently staring at his glass while the rest of us talked. When DM and Ryoko arrived, they sat down, and Yoko began to talk by saying, "Now I know that you all see DM as the leader of your friendship group, but he's just a man, and we should all support him in his DM ventures. Now what were your issues with me personally?" With this, Wanderer left out a deep sigh and muttered, "Why am I wasting my Wednesday morning here?" and left. As soon as he left, DM turned to the rest of us and said, "Anyway, good news, we're expecting." They turned to Ronan and asked, "Godfather?" That was when Calliope left as well. This was 2 years ago now, and it was the last time we all saw each other. As far as I'm aware, nobody from the group is in contact with each other anymore besides their respective significant other. It's a shame since we had good moments, and for a while, we seemed to be having fun, but maybe it's just destined to fail from the start. I haven't played D&D since then, as the whole experience is kind of tainted for me now. And while I sometimes think about giving it a go with another group, I don't know if I'll ever be able to truly get into it again. But this was my story, and I wanted a chance to share it. If people really resonate, I could post an expanded version with some of the other insane things that happened during this time. But just now, I just needed to get this out of my soul and let myself be done with it. Okay, I don't know how... Oh, that went on for way too long. He even said he cut it out the fluff, and there was still some fluff left in there, I believe. I don't know, you guys are going to get the full thing, like I had to read the full thing. We don't need an expanded version. You could just give us a little bit of cliff notes. You don't have to explain everything. But, for the most part, this is about the horror story and not the horror of this writing. Just kidding. It's not that bad. For the most part, this was initially on the DM. It looked like it was really a breaking point was introducing the Yoko character. I think I said everything already. They really should have just talked to him straight up about it, which they did. And it turned out for the worse, and that's how things go. It's, the whole homage. It's better to play no D&D than bad D&D. But it is really a shame that this broke the group apart, except for the couples. But what more can you do about it? You guys, I think, could have always gotten back together and not even played D&D, but you guys could have stayed friends. And I can get that this taints D&D for you, but there are other type of games out there if you don't want to do fantasy. I mean, come on, there's more than just D&D out there for TTRPGs. You could always, I don't know, play board games or something. There's other freaking tabletop games for you to play and much better groups for you to get along with. But I understand if the OP doesn't want to play that anymore. Looking back on the story, yes, the DM had tons of red flags. I don't even know how they managed to keep up with 4 months for this. Besides just being friends. But even then, if it was my friends, I would have to say something about it. Like, come on, if you're making stuff awkward for the group, I'm gonna talk up about it, which I've started to do more now if something ever like that would pop up again. But luckily it hasn't, so ignore my audience. But as I was reading the story, I commented about stuff I saw along the way, so I don't really have any extra input to give. Rather than, don't be a creep, don't be a douchebag, and just respect people. That's it, guys. That's really, it's all so simple. Just sit down and have a fun time. So leave everything outside of the game, and if someone's uncomfortable, speak up about it, talk more. That's all you can really do. If something's destined to fail, then not talking about it isn't not going to make it fail. It's just going to make a more worse of a time for you. I think D&D wouldn't have been as tainted for OP if everyone decided to talk more early before everything really divulged into all this bar sessions and whatnot. But at least they did talk to it. They got it off their chest. They somewhat communicated like adults. And that's all you could ever ask for. That would be our stories for today. Last one was kind of a long one. I wasn't expecting it to be that long. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, blah blah blah. Check the Reddit, check the Twitter, check it all. I read everything, everywhere, every time. Tell me about your guys' week. What are your plans? Tell me about that in the comments. If you would have done something differently in these stories, let me know. If you thought the party itself was a horror, then let me know. But I hope you guys have a lop of the day, whatever I say. I'm too far gone already. I hope you guys have a lop of a day. Bye. But get out of here.